Welcome to Story Conversations. I'm Steven.
I'm Travis.
This is our last podcast episode
Ever?
of this year.
This year.
Yeah, we'll be back in February, but yeah, taking a little bit of a break for the holidays. The holidays, we're at church for Christmas and New Year,
and like a bunch of half the holidays are already passed.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
that's all good.
True. But yeah, so we're gonna take a little break and come back in February with some new stuff. Excited for what I think is season 3 of Story Conversations. That'll be a good time. But for today, before we jump in, what is the best Christmas dessert?
Oh, wow, unexpected. Okay, so. Differentiate.
We never talk about food. I know that's just really throwing a curveball at you.
Differentiate for me like regular desserts from Christmas desserts. Like how do I think about that?
It's all relative.
Okay.
What does your family do for Christmas desserts?
Oh man,
people do gifts. Do they bake things?
Lots
do
of
they
cookies.
buy things? Some people do a mix of all that.
Yeah, we do lots of cookies and like pies and ice cream and stuff like that. So I don't know. Out of the ordinary things that, Katie just wouldn't bake, or we usually have some Tillamook on hand. Tillamook. I love it. It's the best. I like Buckeye balls. Do you like those?
Yeah. I don't like the Buckeyes at all. The real thing, or the team, or the state of Ohio. All of that makes me mad. But the dessert though, those are great.
Yeah, especially if you dip them in dark chocolate, not milk chocolate, because it takes a little bit of the edge off the sweetness, and then coat it in some like salt and whatnot. It's good. Those are probably out of the ordinary thing that I would eat at Christmas time. What about you?
Anyone who loves Reese's needs to try a Trader Joe's dark chocolate version of a Reese's, or any kind of like less highly processed or dark chocolate version, to realize how much more balanced that is. Mm-hmm. My mother-in-law usually does these like cookie exchanges. She goes to like 3 or 4 of them. I didn't know this was a thing until I married into Allison's family. It's like just huge parties and huge gatherings of ladies from various different things. She used to be an engineer, so she's got a bunch of like former engineers that she goes to one with, a bunch of friends, and everybody brings like a ton of cookies, and then everybody gets to take like a little bit of everyone's home. So usually she comes back with like from these multiple cookie exchanges, and it's like keeps some of what she made, and then it's like all these different interesting things, and they have competitions for like most like visually attractive, creative, best tasting and whatnot. And anyway, it's like a big thing apparently. So that's always fun, because she always has this platter that's like just so interesting, and it's like there's always something new and different. So that's kind of fun, because I like, mixing it up, a little diversity in that way. So yeah, that's probably the main thing that's like the standard thing that we usually do, is just like a bunch of different random cookies. But the thing that her family makes I think they're called Spritz cookies. They're like these little small ones that they do like an almond one, a mint one, a couple different flavors, and they're just like it's kind of like sugar cookies. They're like soft and moist, but they're like really small, and I don't know what they do. They taste really good. I think today my mother-in-law is making this with Hallie for the first time. So
fun.
That'll be fun.
That's great. So it's like the Mary Kay of cookie parties.
Yeah, it's like competition somehow is involved, because it's a bunch of bunch of people that are like very like, intense people who've worked hard, who like have a lot of success, and they all come together, and it's like you can't just like hang out and make cookies. It's like a competition, and people like make and decorate special tins. So she'll come home and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is that? And I'm like, oh, they custom printed like a label for this. It's like crazy stuff. And usually those cookies in those tins taste like trash, because those are the people that make it look really cool, and then the cookie looks like whatever they're wanting it to look like a camel or something, and it tastes like straight garbage.
Tastes like a camel.
And we throw it away.
Gross.
Anyway,
it's hard to find a bad cookie, but it's possible.
Yeah. Put some raisins in it.
Yes.
That'll ruin it for me.
Raisins in anything. Just like, let's go ahead and never mind. How you doing?
Kill all dried fruit.
Yeah. Well, hey, dried
fruit's nice sometimes,
It can be.
In a trail mix.
It can be.
Some raisins in a trail mix.
Yeah.
Is fine.
Yeah. It's a good alternative. Like if you want a little sweet hit in life.
Some golden raisins in like some kind of chicken salad situation can be kind of nice.
Yeah.
A little curry chicken salad.
Yeah. Sure.
It's been a long month. It's been a long semester.
I mean, we're recording this on December 17th. Shout out, Brandon. Happy birthday.
Who's Brandon?
That's my brother.
I know. I'm kidding. They don't know that. Not everybody knows that.
Yes.
Although a lot of people mistake Brandon for you. A lot of the children will get confused between you, me, and Brandon because we all have beards
Ben
and bald
Jones.
heads. And it's very funny.
Yes.
Your son has come up to me and Brandon before yelling "Dad" on Sundays, and I look at him going, "Buddy, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not him."
His idea of like who dad is just process of elimination. Like he just runs up to every
afar.
male and he's like,
It's like
Dad,
a little
Dad,
minimal
nope.
scan of like
Yeah.
an outline, and
Yeah.
they're like, that's close enough.
And then he turns into Elf and he's like, "You're not my dad. You smell like cheese."
I love you. I love you. I love you.
Oh, it's the best.
Can't
That's
wait
a
to
good
watch. I
Christmas
can't wait.
Eve watch.
That is going to be a great movie to watch. Well, today we're going to talk. Last week we talked about kind of some hopes or not hopes, but kind of a little bit of review of the year and some different kind of looking back. And this time we're going to talk about next year, some hopes we have perhaps personally in our families, and then things we're praying for and thinking about for the church, and whatever categories, seem helpful. But some things we're praying for, excited about, looking forward to in the new year. You want to kick us off? What are some things personally you're hoping for, looking forward to next year? Goals, whatever.
Oh man, goals.
Oh, just mix it up.
We should do some goal setting
On the
live.
fly. Live goal setting right now.
I haven't done goal setting in a couple of years, and it's actually probably a good reminder. I should do that.
Yeah, that's true.
Personally, one thing I'm really excited about, our kids are going to go to school full time for the first time, which we're very excited for them, and then also very excited for us as an output of that. Just a little more time with Katie, and a little more brain space for both of us throughout the day, and those kind of things. So, looking forward to that. What I've historically been doing personally, one thing I'm looking forward to in the last 2 or 3 years is moving very slowly through books of the Bible for my devotional time. And I'm looking forward to in January, I'm gonna hop on the Bible reading plan train again.
Oh yeah.
The annual Bible reading plan. We've got on our website. Obviously the Machine version is very good as well. There's so many options out there for really good versions of annual Bible reading plans. So I'm looking forward to doing that again. Man, personally, I honestly haven't thought about that a lot lately. Those are kind of the two big things that come to mind right now. What about you?
I think for me, I'm working through the Old Testament, so kind of want to just keep pressing on there. I'm in close to finishing Exodus now, so that is very quickly when it gets into you start entering the no man's land where a lot of people quit Bible reading plans or just go, this isn't for me kind of thing. So I'm excited about that though, because I the way I've been reading it has been, generally speaking, most pastors would advocate not looking just for character stories and saying, I need to be like Joseph. There's good things to learn there, but I feel like God's been using it in my life, especially this semester with twists and turns and circumstances in life and ministry, to just look at what God does and look at how the long view God takes with things and how long people have to wait for him, how patient they need to be. And then also seeing that's what God was doing this whole time. Like the story of Joseph. So yeah, I'm excited to do that and spend some time kind of willingly going through the no man's land of, the story of Scripture and God's people and them longing for a Savior and wilding out in various different ways. And so, yeah, it's going to be good just kind of wrestling through that. And so I'm hoping to finish that out probably in the spring. But I'm going to do that. Keep working on some systematic theology stuff and just kind of want to keep growing in my understanding of that, keep my brain in that world, especially as it comes to just lots of questions that people have about the Bible and what the Bible says. So, which dovetails to main thing personally that I would want to continue doing is just have a couple people in my life that I've been kind of evangelizing and getting to know that I'm really praying God would give me some more and more inroads to be able to have more conversations and ask good questions and get time with them one-on-one to talk. And so, yeah, I'm excited about that and hoping to get some guys to come to church with me and just praying that God would use me in some way in our church and their lives and God would change them. So anyway, that's kind of an individual front. And then other than get more sleep, which I'm praying my kids, my two girls, will start sleeping more. Like my girls slept through the night last night for the first time in a while, and I went to work out this morning, and I just crushed it. And I was like, man, this is what it's like when you get good sleep.
Yeah,
you have energy. So anyway, I'm hoping for more of that because I need that. I need some more sleep in my life. So, and then on the family front, girls are, approaching 1.5, 3.5 soon, and so in the next few months, and so that'll be just want to like make some fun memories with them, and I'm like keep putting before myself the reminder that I want to make sure their experience of me and especially in the early years, but in general, isn't, dad's a pastor, so he's always at dinner with someone else. Dad's a pastor, so he always has a thing. Dad's a pastor, so he's tired and he needs to go take a nap. Like, I experienced a lot of that as a pastor's kid, and like that happens, but especially in these early years, I really want to make sure like I'm just like really intentional with how I can make memories with them and be present with them and have fun with them and ask them questions and just like get on their level and be in their world when I'm home as much as possible. So especially as they're both getting older and both, now Nora's starting to talk a little bit. I'm excited about like this next year and approaching 2 and 4 for them. That's going to be really fun. So, and then with that, I want to do more so with Hallie, start working through the New City Catechism.
Yeah,
she's approaching 4. She's asking lots of questions about death and heaven and sin and brokenness and why things are the way they are. Or like the other day, saw a car she didn't recognize, and she said, "What makes that Chevy go?" Which was incredible.
That's funny.
Wasn't a Chevy, but
but hey, she heard it somewhere.
I love that. Anyway, but so I'm excited to kind of like start doing some more of that intentional parenting formation stuff with them, and asking good questions, answering some questions with them, and just like building some of that. So anyway, that's going to be really fun. Got some kind of personal development things that I want to do, ways I'm hoping God will use me in the community, and then just really want to like continue to double down on investing in my family and in the next generation, knowing that, man, that's what I care more than anything else is, Hallie's going to be 18 in 15 years and, graduating high school. And I'm like, man, I want to make sure like I really have that sort of in view more than any other metric or time frame that ministry or life, or circumstances in our world may put before me. So anyway, that's kind of what's on my mind for next year.
That's fun.
Yeah.
We should do some goal setting.
We should. What about the church, our church family? Are there some things you're praying for, hopeful for, excited about, eager about as you're looking at next year?
Yeah, lots.
As a whole, or perhaps even like your group or whatever.
Yeah.
Specific people you're working with.
Yeah, we're doing a little discipleship journey with the group that I'm really excited about. And there's a couple of other groups of people doing it as well, just kind of testing it to see how it would work in the life of our church. But it's just all focused on discipleship.
Yeah.
And really that theme right there, discipleship, is kind of the thing I'm most excited about next year in the life of our church. It's baked into literally everything Jesus tells us to do, whether it be the Great Commission or the Great Commandment. It's all just wrapped up in and around discipleship, so following Jesus together. And both the kind of manual that I'm going through with this group of people and some stuff we're cooking up in the background, what we're attempting to do is draw out what does the New Testament actually define as a disciple in their being, their identities, and then how do we, as modern day Christians, live out those identities on earth. And so really excited about the fruit that group is bearing, and particularly the output that manual would be for new believers. The Lord's given us a lot of baptisms over the years, and in a lot of ways, excuse me, I'm going to clear my throat. Coming off a little cold, and so
and it is cold outside.
And yeah, so anyways, we've had a lot of baptisms over the years, and most of the time it's been, hey, now hop into a group and start serving, and that's good. We want everyone to do that in the life of our church, but also have a way for someone who just got baptized to have an intense formation period that we all need. And that formation being both head, heart, and hands. And that's really what this manual does. It helps really distill down to the very basics of how do you engage the Lord with your head, with your heart, and with your hands. And so really excited about what that will do, and the type of mentors we'll be able to have for new believers in the life of our church. And then just broadly speaking with discipleship, really this will come in January. We're going to preach a little sermon series called Reset, where we're just going to go back to the basics of what discipleship is and who we are as disciples. Super stoked on that.
Me too.
For everyone broadly, because we become disciples at conversion, and we never, ever, ever stop being disciples.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no major proof to back this up, but even in eternity, we're still disciples because we're not God. And
right.
so, like the goal is to grow. We'll always be growing. And we want everyone, whether you've been following Jesus for 6 seconds or 60 years, to grow as a disciple. And so going to walk through some of the outputs of that in January, but really, in a broader level later in 2025. Really excited about that. And then one of the identities of a disciple is a witness to Jesus. And so starting in February, we're going to launch a sermon series through Acts that's going to take us at a minimum of 18 months. And I say minimum because who knows what God has in store for us through that sermon series, but really honing in on we are witnesses in our city, and I'm really excited about what God has in store for us.
Dude, yes. As you heard in advance, we've been working on discipleship from various angles, but specifically this fall, really hunkered down in a couple different avenues of doing some in-person discipleship work, like you mentioned with your group and a couple other folks that are doing that. And then we as a staff have been working through just building out what it actually means to be a disciple and like key language around that. And so because you listen to this podcast, you actually get a little inside scoop. So this is what that is. It's called the whole disciple. And the idea, as you just said, is about identities that we take on versus just behaviors. I know when we did our spiritual discipline sermon series, I know like there's just a tendency for people to hear that, take that, and then just turn that into religious check boxes and then feel like, oh, I'm not enough, or oh, I'm going to work really hard to do these things. And like just make it about behavior rather than about being an identity, which is what scripture says is our identity is in Christ, and identity is totally surpasses behavior and outward stuff. And so yeah, these are those identities. It's family member, worshiper, servant, steward, and witness. The idea, like Travis just said, is that these are things that are ongoing, and it's a lifelong pursuit of being like Jesus. And God shapes us and changes us through that. And as a church, that's what it means to go out and make disciples. It's about embodying those things, sharing that with others, and then all of us just kind of growing together. And I am super excited to roll that out, kind of a little soft launch with doing an overview, and then a lot more to come as far as really giving some teeth and some meat to the bones of how we as a church can be formed around these different identities forever. There's no checking the boxes. I'm good enough. I got everything together. That's the cool thing. It humbles all of us because none of us have arrived. But also, it's, like you said, it's not about how long you've been following Jesus, because all of us need to grow. All of us have blind spots, and it's just, we're sinful and broken and human, and we're never going to arrive. And so, but that's a freeing thing, because then we just get to submit ourselves to that. So I'm really excited to see just what that's going to do for our church, to have clarity when someone says, what does it mean to be a Christian? And not at Story Church as though we have our own definition, but at our church when we say like, well, what should I be doing? Like, what does it mean to be growing as a disciple, growing as a Christian, growing as a follower of Christ, for that not to be vague, that not to be something that's like just on you to figure out by yourself, or something that's measured by, giving, serving, attendance, like, really tangible churchy metrics, but to be something that's broader, deeper, that includes all of those things, but it's a deeper reality in our hearts. And so we have some cool stuff coming just to help us all ask ourselves some good questions. And then how do I grow? And some resources, some books, some events we're going to do, some classes, and it's going to be awesome. So for a church, I'm mainly excited about that, because I know for a church plant that's been here for 5 years and looking to the future, it's just good to have some clarity on like, who are we and where are we going, and not just focused on, facilities and finances and stability, but really identity and culture and who are we and where are we going. Like, that's the most important stuff. And we got some good clarity there. That's just going to go, hey, this is who we are. And it's not going to change every year. This is it. So I'm stoked on that. So I'm also just thinking about kind of honestly related to those things, but really what it would look like for more and more for our church to just own and embrace this idea of being a church family. Just what that does with preventing division and the willingness to deal with conflict or misunderstandings, and to, not in a, debating and fighting way, but just like being genuine about relationships, not running away from problems, just being honest with each other, being able to support each other and help each other when times are hard, and committing to one another as a church family. That the desire to belong and to have support when life is hard is something we all have. And we have support systems to varying degrees, but the church family is, designed to be the most supportive and the best place for us to feel safe and to have that connectedness. And we have a lot of that at our church. I'm just excited because I know that's growing. And that's a prayer I have for next year is, man, whatever happens with where we are as a church or what we're doing or staff or like details of what like a church looks like from the outside to someone who's just looking at Google Maps or looking at a website, what it feels like to be there in a group, to be there on a Sunday, to be actually part of the community. That's just grown in how much people love each other. And I just am excited and hopeful to see that grow even more, where we're just committed to one each other and we just don't run, we don't quit, and we don't let someone run. When someone runs away, when someone disappears, when someone's gone, we go chase after them. Jesus talks about the shepherd that goes after the one and leaves the 99. Like, we don't just let people slip through the cracks. And that's a community effort. That's a community owned thing. That's not a staff owned thing. Yeah. So anyway, I think that stuff's already happening. And I feel like, man, that's going to increase. And our church is just going to be more and more a place that people who are broken and need Jesus, or people that have drifted from faith over time, drifted away from the Lord and need to be restored, are welcome to do that, are invited in to do that. And then we walk alongside each other with grace as we messily stumble through being like Jesus. So, and then I think lastly, just thinking in the same way I'm praying for myself and excited about just being a representative of Christ in the community and evangelism. I really want to see our church go from a place where we don't see our faith and the church itself as primarily something that benefits us and that we're the endpoint of, or that our families are the endpoint of that benefit, of that goodness that God's church is. But that when we leave church every week, we really believe that we're being sent and that we're to go share the hope that we have and have the reason for the hope we have with those around us in our community and our family and our workplace, wherever God has us. And so I really want to see more baptisms and more salvations, but even, more than that, just more stories of people just being Jesus to those that are around them. And that simple behavior, that simple way of living life just changes things. And then God uses that. And so that's happening. And I just want more of that. I want more of that to happen. More people who are broken and needy and hopeless and blind who need Jesus to hear the hope that is in Christ, and then to come to salvation, and for us as a church to celebrate that, and then to be able to help disciple them and help them grow and learn. And so, yeah, I'm really excited about that. It feels like our church is really poised in a lot of ways to focus on just really like girding ourselves up and committing to one another and saying like, hey, this is our family. We're not going anywhere. We're going to do this together. And this is a collectively owned thing that is the church. And then when we're not together, seeing us as we're all sent out to be representatives of God's church and of Christ, and just that being like, that's who we are as a church. Mm-hmm. Feels like we're really on the precipice of that being the primary thing that we're known for at Story Church. And I'm stoked because that is the church. Yep. So, yeah.
I think one of the things that God is driving us to, and this is really, cooked into what we launched in advance at the beginning of Ephesians 3 in verses 14 through 16, when Paul's praying for them, he's praying that they would rely on the Spirit. And I think God is, like we said aspirationally, like this year we want to be reliant on the Spirit, and God is actualizing that in our midst as we go. And I'm seeing an increased dependence upon the Lord in prayer and in other ways in the life of our church. And I think the Lord wants to continue to drive us to that place.
Yeah.
I'm all the way from like the big picture, we've shared the news fairly broadly now of just like, we had a surprising update on the building and it's disappointing, but
it's not, say what that is just so that someone knows.
Yeah, we're kind of in a gray area right now of neither yes nor no on the merger, and we're pressing towards that, and we're continuing to work that in the background. But we were surprised in that.
Yeah.
It looked like things were going to move in our favor. It didn't happen. It was, again, very surprising, very disappointing, frustrating in some ways as well. But the Lord reminded us that our great hope is not buildings. Our great hope is Him. While we want a building and we want permanency, our ministry could happen in the middle of Red Hill Park.
Yeah, that's right.
And we can make disciples in the middle of Heritage Park or wherever we find ourselves into the future. And it's not ultimately dependent upon those things. And so He drove us back to a place as staff and elders of like, man, we need to pray to the Lord for the main things. Yes, we want Him to deliver us this building, and we want Him to do what He can only do, but him to make us focus on the main things. And then I see that moving more narrowly into life for our church where, otherwise healthy people are having surprising injuries or, heart issues or foot issues, or just the nasty influenza that's going around this year is just taking people out for literally like 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm finding myself in these conversations all the time with people around like, oh, I don't know, like my work's doing layoffs, or we have this sickness, or I don't know what's going to happen to my marriage, or whatever else it is. And all of those are very real crises in people's lives. So I want to make sure I say that out loud. At the same time, I think what the Lord's trying to do is put his thumb on us a little bit as a church and say, like, depend upon me, not your health. Depend upon me, not your job. Depend upon me, not your finances. Depend upon me, not your buildings. And every once in a while, I think we subconsciously drift into an area of a prideful, we've got this posture.
Totally.
And I don't think it's conscious for most of us. I think it's just subconscious. Like life is just going on according to our plan. And so therefore we think we've got it together. And every once in a while, the Lord just is going to say, I'm going to drop this in your life. Call it suffering, call it hardship, call it whatever you want to call it. And what he's trying to do in that ultimately is wean us off the things of this world and make us totally dependent upon him. And we said in advance, we want to be reliant on the Spirit. And now he's saying, okay, let me show you what that looks like. And that's where we find ourselves. And so I've just seen post-service prayer. It just continues to grow with more and more people coming up and saying, I need help. I need to pray. Restore was one of my favorite things we did this year, and just worshiping and praying, a little impromptu prayer service after the gathering this last Sunday, like just little things like that where I'm seeing and I'm getting messages and home groups that are testifying to prayers being answered and those kind of things. Like that's something culturally in 2025 that, we're going to do all our organizational things and our goals and those kind of things. But behind the scenes, that's something I'm just like, man, I'm stoked on.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. There's been like an ebb and flow, I think, through our church's history of seasons where we feel vulnerable as a church, and just like you said, the families of our church, and feel dependent upon the Lord, and it's forced dependence, financial or circumstantial things, health things. And then there's other seasons where there's like, it feels like there's seasons of plenty where there's momentum and excitement and there's abundance, and it's, we don't feel as dependent on the Lord. Maybe we are thankful during those times and have gratitude, but like, it's just easy to slip into this, we got this. We don't have to worry. We don't have to pray as much. And we just stop praying. Even as our staff, like we really have committed more of our time to just praying as a staff or elders, like just not talking and thinking and making decisions and trying to be wise in our own eyes, but slowing down and just praying. And we've done that as a church on all levels as a church. And that's something I feel that is happening. And it's like, we got to retain that holistically as a church family, because that's true in the seasons of abundance and plenty and health as much as it is in the seasons where things are rough. And it's like I always view that as an opportunity to be close to God, and then to recognize how much we actually need him and how good it is to be close, and then go, why would I ever want to be distant? Why would I ever want to just like be independent and then just like prodigal come back when things are hard, later? It's like, just don't leave, I'm like, tell it to myself, like, just don't leave, just be close all the time, like live in that place of dependence and closeness.
Totally.
So anyway, I love that.
That's fun. I'm really excited for student ministry next year. They've got winter camp coming up the first week of January. Just super stoked for them to get up and literally on the mountaintop with the Lord, and hopefully have a Moses-like experience, with him, and just seeing the way that ministry started in the Anderson backyard to where it is now and to where it's going.
Dude, how
next
wild
year.
is that?
Yeah, it's so cool. It's so cool, and I'm super excited about what God's doing there, and I'm really excited about kind of what we're moving towards with home group ministry next year, and some more leadership over that, and then, like you said, just being in the community, sharing the gospel, doing good deeds, living like Jesus, in our city, and actively saying like, hey, the first 5 years of this thing, it was like, we gotta build the boat. We got to build the foundation. We got to make sure we're healthy. We got to make sure we're sustainable. We got to make sure we're viable. All of those kind of things. But like, we're there.
Yeah.
Like, let's go take this to others.
Yeah.
This isn't just about us.
Yeah. a verse that's come to my mind a lot when I think about our church and changes that, we're going to make, and depth that we want to create in various ways, and just expansion is just this is, Matthew, not Romans, Matthew 9, that the workers are few, but these fields they're just ready, and not that that's not like there's not enough volunteers or people aren't doing enough or something, but just there's so much before us, so much opportunity in the community, so much lostness around us. But even in our church, there's just opportunity to step up and lead. We need way more home groups than we have. We need way more home group leaders than we have. We need leaders in every area of ministry. We need more volunteers in some ways, but maybe less about the volunteers is more just like bridging that gap between staff and then volunteers, and just inviting more and more people to step up and lead in different capacities and at different levels, and just creating like a depth chart and a bench, as it were, as a church, where there's just like more going on, and we're all invited in different ways to be part of it. And that just comes with that just brings maturity when you have that, where it's not the same few people, not even staff, just like few people in the church that just serve in multiple ministries forever and just keep saying yes as we grow. And I'm excited about that, about inviting people into more, and seeing people who have giftedness and calling that out in them and saying, hey, we see this in you. Would you love to use that? Where would you like to use those gifts? And people really believing in themselves and having confidence in how God has made them, and saying, oh, like it's not just that people come in to consume church and just sit on the sidelines. That's a reality in the church. But I do think a lot of times it's just people don't really see how the way that God made them is beautiful, and that they are needed and necessary in his church, and that they have a meaningful role to play in the church. And I think a lot of people just don't believe that. No one's ever told them that. No one's ever called that out in them. No one's ever encouraged them in that way. No one's ever kind of lifted their gaze up and said, hey, like walk with us in this, step up into this. And so, I think when we first started our church, I feel like a lot of times we're just trying to plug holes and we're just like trying to get things done. But now I think we find ourselves in a season where we can actually be more slow and thoughtful and go, man, who has God gifted us with in our church, and how can they use their gifts to bless the church, to bring God glory, and then to show who God is like to all the world, to those that are around us. And I think this is going to be a cool season to have some more leadership over things like groups ministry, to make some potential part-time or who knows full-time hires, to just elevate and those that have been leading in our church, and then look at areas where we just need to invite people into leadership and train people on how to lead, and give people those opportunities and trust them to just use their gifts for the good of our church, and not let any person, any team be a bottleneck for what God can do in our church. Right. And I'm just excited about that, because that's people don't get excited when there's just a bunch of needs and we're just trying to jam a bunch of people into holes to make things work, and we're just kind of, trying to survive, and it's rushed and crazy and chaotic. Like those seasons come and go. And we were in that, in those early days, but now we're really in a place where it's like, it's more exciting, I think, for people to go, wow, like I didn't realize God made me in ways that like I have a meaningful part to play in my church family. And like I'm valuable and equally valuable as anyone else in any other role at any other level. That's such a cool, and for myself, like when people have given me a shot to lead in my own story, my own ministry experience, and just believed in me and said, hey, I want you to teach. Hey, I want you to counsel this person. Hey, I want you to come with me. Like just inviting me alongside them as they lead, and then just trusting me and training me along the way. Like that just makes all the difference in the world. And I don't know if I'd be a pastor if people hadn't given me those opportunities and like saw things in me and called that out in me. And so I think we're going to have more time to be able to think that way and do that as a church, so we're not rushing anywhere right now. And we just have so many awesome people that are just wonderful and gifted and godly and committed. And it's like, man, it's going to be cool to see. I just, in my mind, I'm thinking of all these different people's names that I won't say on the podcast to call them out or make them feel pressured, but I just see all these faces and I'm like, oh man, like I can't wait to see what God's going to do in and through this family, this couple, this person, this guy, this gal over this next year. And just like, wow, this is going to be awesome for them, for our church. And that just gets me really excited.
Yeah. I think what's cool is, so really what you're talking about there is like priesthood of all believers.
Yeah.
And I think what's really cool about that, related to the whole disciple thing, is that a massive percentage of all of that happens outside of Sunday mornings. And
right.
I'm really high on Sunday mornings. I
right.
spend the bulk of my week thinking about Sunday morning, and so this is not me saying don't prioritize Sunday morning. You should prioritize it more. But what I am saying is that when we're calling people to ministry and the priesthood of all believers and servanthood and leadership and these types of things, we're saying this is happening Monday through Saturday as well, in addition to Sunday. When we're calling you to serve, yes, we're saying serve the church, find your place, whether it be production or worship or dream team or kids, wherever you need to find your place, you should be serving the church because Jesus commands us to, but also be a servant in your everyday life, in your neighborhood, in your marriage, and with your kids, with your parents, whatever it might be. This is an identity thing that supersedes the Sunday morning gathering. When we're saying, be a good steward, yes, you should steward your finances and give to the local church, but what we're also saying is a steward is simply a manager of all the things God's entrusted to them. So are you stewarding your home for the sake of the Lord with your neighborhood? Are you stewarding your car? Are you stewarding your time? Like, how are you using your time and those kind of things? And so when we're calling people to more, what we're not saying is make your life church-centric. It should be Jesus and gospel-centered. And then from there, yes, the church is very closely related to that.
Right.
But there's so much more outside of that we're also calling people towards. And I've seen an increase of that in the life of our church. And so we're just looking at it and saying, like, okay, God, like, there's this wave that's begun to form in the deeps of the ocean of people living out their God-given callings in everyday life. And we're seeing dependence grow. And this wave, again, is just growing. And it's going to crash, and positively crash. I started that metaphor without thinking about where it would go. But it's like, we're just going to ride that wave, and we're going to say, like, God, what are you doing? And what he's begun doing is that. And yes, we want to see it happen in the life of our church and home groups and Sunday mornings, but we also want to see it happen everywhere else you find yourself. And I'm really excited to see God do that in our church.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I'm really stoked on, you mentioned it already, but student ministry has been really fun. I've been leading worship for them a handful of times and just been able to, like, sit and observe and be there without it being weird for me just showing up because I have something I'm doing. And that's been really cool to see students go from kind of like stilted and nervous and looking around, not wanting to sing, to them like actually engaging and singing, and hearing Andrew, our family minister, just teaching them about life and from the word, and just helping them think about, like, just real things they're going to have to deal with and questions they're going to have to grapple with, and who they want to be and who they're associated with and what their life is about, and whether they're going to live for money and success and popularity, or if they're going to live for something greater. That's been really exciting to see kind of firsthand the growth, not just both numerically over this last year, but also just seeing kids be there that are, some believers, who knows, where all these, some of these kids, I don't know where they're all at in their faith. Some, are kids of our families, and then some are just like their friends that they've invited, that, like, their parents that families don't go to church are just dropping, non-believing families, just dropping them off at student ministry, and they're just coming, they're hanging out, they're having fun playing games, but then they're sitting and worshiping, listening, and receiving some teaching and doing some small group discussion. And, like, it's been really cool to see how the culture that's been created there is both fun and genuine and has depth, and they're getting after it in discussion. Kids are being genuine and honest about their struggles, and, like, it's just been really cool to see that. And I'm excited because I think that's the future of our church. It's not the, where are we going to meet on Sundays in the next few years. The future of our church is the next generation. It's our children, it's our students, it's, really, we're going to have the first high school graduates, really, like, classes of the next couple of years. We're going to have, like, the first time that we've had kids go from kids ministry into student ministry, graduate out and go to college and get jobs, and have really that whole experience of being developed and formed in part at our church. And so I'm just excited to see what that's going to produce and how that ministry is going to grow. And there's been a bunch of volunteers that, no one knows. I mean, people know, and can see who serves on Sundays, but there's a bunch of volunteers that are doing audio, worship, helping lead those small groups, helping teach occasionally with Andrew, that are just committing themselves on Sunday nights when they've already, had service in the morning. Many of whom also serve on, a team on Sunday mornings, and they're just committing themselves to be there to invest in these students. And like, I'm just so excited about that and prayerful that, especially, those are those students that don't know Jesus, like will this next year, and we'll get to, baptize them. We'll get to hear their testimonies at some point. And it's a cool time to go from, planning a church with mostly little kids and babies, toddlers and babies and kindergarten and under for the most part, to now we have this huge bulk of elementary students that's about to blow up student ministry in a couple of years.
Yep.
And then we have, 20, 25 students in student ministry. And it's just like, wow, this is a picture of like what God's done over time. And man, some of these kids are just like serious about it. So that they're serious about their faith, and like, they're ready to be launched out. And like, that's really, really cool. Like I'm prayerful our church can be a church that has students graduate and go to college, go get a job or whatever comes next. And they don't leave the church. They don't fade away. That it defies that statistic that often has been the case in the church. And anyway, that's really exciting to me. And then kids ministry in the same way. It's been cool. Even as of like this week, they've given like $300 as just the kids of our church, like, given of all of their money they've gotten for gifts and presents, birthdays, or money they've earned or allowance or whatever the situation is. Like, these kids are just bringing money. We're doing an offering for 20 schemes. And it's just like, man, like they're willing to give, like children are willing to give their own money. It's huge, and sacrifice that for God's kingdom. And it's like, it's humbling. I think it should sober up a lot of the adults in our church too. Be like, man, do I even do that? I mean, all these kids are tithing their like what they've been given for their birthday. We don't tithe our birthday money or Christmas money. We view that as our own. You get a gift or a bonus at work, and I'm sure a lot of people don't think of that as like, I need to give of that. They just, that's just extra income for me. Anyway, that's just been like really cool and humbling and encouraging. And I'm like, wow, like our youngest among us are leading the way with generosity in this season that we've been encouraging and teaching and trying to be formed around this idea of being stewards of what God's given to us. And I'm like, man, what is going to happen to this fourth grader that gave, $35 towards, our missions fund, as a kid? Like, man, what kind of fruit is that going to produce in their life long term? When they start doing that now, when many adults in the church, many of us like don't learn these lessons of tithing and generosity until well into later years of following Jesus, like that's often something that comes later. And I'm like, man, that's just an indicator of where their hearts are. And I know a lot of these kids, like, it's not been like mom and dad forcing him to do it. It's been, like I know in your home, like cool stories of just like having conversations about it and being like, hey, here's what generosity is. And like, they're actually making these decisions themselves because they want to. And it's like, man, that is just so exciting and so encouraging. Anyway, I've been spending a little bit more time with Andrew this year, kind of working with and through and thinking about next generation ministries and just kind of getting into the weeds of that a little bit. And it's just been so life-giving, and it makes me so excited for the future of our church.
I love it. Can't wait. Can't wait for 2025. What else you got? Any other questions?
No questions. I am not excited about anything else.
That's it. It's it. I mean, we could like probably make this a 4 or 5 hour.
Yeah. And we don't need to do that.
Stories. And
you got a fun question to close us out?
Oh man, let's think about this. I do. I mean, just want to say, if you're listening to this, happy Christmas, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Merry New Year. All of the mixed metaphors. I hope you enjoy your time.
Big metaphor guy.
Okay, if you had to celebrate Christmas Day in another city on Earth, what city would you choose?
That's a good question. It makes me think of a very dumb, very poorly lowly rated but fun movie called Christmas with the Cranks.
We've seen that.
Tim Allen and
Tim Allen's hilarious.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah, it's
based on a book that I read years ago. That's really funny. Obviously it's like one for one. I think it's like what is it? It's 5% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh wow,
it's got a horrible rating, but it's so funny. But I love that question of like, what if we just Home Alone? What if we just for Christmas we just As a side note, we talked about this at a Christmas party recently. How in the world did that family afford to fly their entire extended family for like multiple weeks to Paris and then house them in like some gaudy, amazing hotel, like and the house they lived in had like 20 rooms. You're like, you watch that movie as a kid and none of that really registers. And then as an adult, you're like, wait a second, like, what did this guy do for a living that enabled him to do that? And never, his brother's like refusing to pay for anything, and he's like actually paying for all of it. And you're like, this is absurd. This is classic Hollywood, man.
I mean, it's based in Chicago, right? So you might have mafia ties.
Who knows?
Who knows?
It's a real house. I think someone bought it. Like, it's been used. It's not like a set or anything. That's a legit place. So
there's a lot of plot holes in Home Alone, so you just have to enjoy it. It's like, oh, look, a bunch of toy cars at the base of the stairs. I'm just not going to step on that. Like little things like that. It's just like, oh, that door handle is bright orange. I wonder if there's a flame on the other side of it, making it hot. I'm not going to touch that. Oh, look, this torch is burning my head. I'm going to stand here for 40 seconds and let it
scream.
Yeah, it's like, so anyways, I love that movie.
That movie's so good.
But yeah, I've often wondered, what does that guy do for a living? Who knows? There's an absurd amount of money in this world.
I go two opposite ways to answer your question. I've never had a White Christmas, and I watched that super old movie White Christmas a lot growing up. But like, that would be pretty cool to like be snowed in on Christmas, and like you're stocked with all the food and you're just cooking and get like a big old brunch breakfast situation going on Christmas Day. That's what my family always did growing up. So that's kind of attractive. Like, go somewhere like, Northwest or Northeast or something that's just like all snowed in and just like in like a cool cabin and just like hunker down with the fire like that. That would be pretty cool, because I've never had that like traditional, vibe for Christmas. So, but it'd either be that, or I'd just be like, screw all of the stereotypes, and I just want to go to like Hawaii and just go somewhere like super beautiful, because that'd be awesome. Some island place. But yeah, I think probably that's my main answer though. I just would love to actually have like a snowy day on Christmas, and kids go outside and play in the snow and all that stuff, like the warm, cozy vibe situation. That would be awesome. What about you?
Yeah, I would probably choose one of the, European cities with the historic like Christmas markets.
Oh yeah,
somewhere like in Bavaria or Poland or
Austria
Sweden
or something. Totally.
Just somewhere like
Switzerland.
that.
Oh, Christmas in Switzerland. There it is.
Yeah, it'd be something along those lines. Where we've seen the videos of all the Christmas markets. It's truly like, Europe is totally like post-Christian, so they don't even know what they're celebrating. But it's like, hey, I'll know what I'm celebrating and do it here, and eat your cookies and drink your coffee and watch your lights, and like I would, that'd be so fun. Yeah. That'd be so fun. Unfortunately, we both have jobs that we work till very late on Christmas Eve.
That's true.
So we would have to find a red-eye flight to do Christmas Day.
Yeah, and much like the McAllister family, or unlike the McAllister family, I do not have the money to do a European vacation for Christmas. But who knows?
But you do have mob ties. So do you want to tell the listeners about your ties to the mafia?
What are my mob ties?
Yeah, well, they just are.
What?
I don't know.
I was like, is there some story or joke I told that I don't remember?
No, I
have no mob ties.
It's December 17th.
I have Bay Area ties, wine country ties, Sonoma County. Those are my ties.
Yeah.
Not a lot of mobsters there.
No, but a lot of history.
True.
A lot of history. Good stuff.
You're welcome, America, for the wine.
and for Alcatraz.
That's true. And all your technology and phones that are ruining your lives. Sorry about that.
Yeah, sorry. That's San Jose.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Forget them.
Well, hey, thanks for hanging with us this season. Excited to see you this Sunday and at Christmas Eve services at 4 and 5:30. Make sure you invite some friends to that. That's going to be a really awesome time. We'll be doing a little prayer walk, inviting the neighborhood at 4 on Sunday evening, this upcoming Sunday, the 22nd. So that'll be awesome. Just get to invite people in the neighborhood and pray for the neighborhood that our church, building is present in. And that's going to be a sweet time. So, but yeah, we will be back on this podcast in February. So enjoy your holidays. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll catch you in 2025.
Woo!